What's the creepiest thing you have encountered surfing the web? Story 1. I avoided a lot of the rotten videos, but the sound of people burning to passing in a tunnel stuck with me. It was fairly recent, earlier this year, I think. Semi caught fire and caused a pile-up or something in the tunnel. One driver got out. Story 2. Autopsy photos of a bride in India, I think. She'd been taken down right after the wedding by her family because they didn't approve of her marriage. Her limbs still had henna on them, even after she'd been dismembered. I still think about her sometimes. Story 3. The earliest one that shook me pretty bad was a video of a dad performing CPR on his dead son who had fallen from their apartment balcony, and then the video cut to police cam footage of him, father, laying in bed with a tragic endnote and pills. I'll never forget that image. I think it's lost to the internet. He was an American, I think, but he was in the Philippines doing mixed martial arts, I believe. Story 4. Saw a video of a young child, maybe about 11-12 years old, hanging from a tree with a rope tied around her neck. It wasn't even the actual hanging that was the most devastating thing about that video. It was the way she cried right before she did it. She apologized over and over again to her parents, her voice breaking into sobs in between each word she uttered. Then silence. I saw that video over 10 years ago now, and I'll just never forget it. Story 5. Live feeds of various security cameras around the world. So many people sitting there in their homes while internet strangers watch them. Answer. I actually just recently encountered this. Me and my friends were trying to find a site that was streaming the Black Sabbath Back to the Beginning show. We eventually landed on this one particular site that had a fish tank page at the top. I pointed this out to my friend, stupidly thinking that the site was hosting Sam Hyde's fish tank show, only to find out it was just streaming CCTV footage from around the world. We saw a cashier just doing his job, a camera in an apartment stairwell, and there might have been one in an alley in some slum. First time we ever saw anything like it, we were creeped TF out and just dipped instantly. Story 6. I watched Ken Bigley get his head sawn off by ISIS. That was deeply unpleasant. I'd imagined an Islamic beheading to be a dude with a sharp sword chopping a head off. It wasn't. It was a 5-minute struggle to detach head from body at the same time as body was being detached from soul, while knowing during the whole thing that he had a family back in England waiting for him to be released from captivity. Story 7. I randomly came across a video on Reddit of a kid in a Discord call, maybe 12 to 16-year-old. With a KSG shotgun, he smiles and waved at the camera, then blew his head off. His mother came into the room and started screaming. Weirdly enough today, I've been having a lot of anxiety thinking about him specifically today. Strange how I came across this post. R-Ape, I wish you didn't pull that trigger. Story 8. There used to be a subreddit many years ago that I looked up because I thought that can't actually be a thing, and it very much was. It was RCUT female corpses, which is exactly what the title says. Pictures of dead women that people thought were attractive. The gore part didn't bother me. I've worked in healthcare and have seen dead people IRL, but the fact that it was corpses they thought were attractive, that is what was creepy. Answer. I remember on, I think, Make My Coffin Sub, there was this one user who always would just post dead women, usually Asian, before autopsy. All the comments were about how OP was clearly a necrophiliac, as he not just posted these regularly, but also hentai of corpses too. Pretty messed. Especially since he probably worked in the eye industry, as they were all on the autopsy table. Story 9. I watched the entire compilation of videos made by Ricardo Lopez, Bjork's stalker, including the one where he shot himself. Haunting. Story 10. Guy goes through tutorial of cutting off the head of his own male body part using rubber bands to prevent bleeding out. Story 11. I Googled my full name. Found a guy who shared my exact same name and he was running a personal website. This was before blogs were a thing. I would check in periodically because he was at the time, early 40s gay man with HIV. He would post full body pics when talking about his journey with HIV. Eventually, he stopped updating. Tragic. I never reached out, but I probably should have. Story 12. I saw a guy cut his own skin off his ribs, saw some pretty crazy shoot too, but that's pretty much the worst I've ever seen. Story 13. Ripper is a gangster. Some guy, Ripper, way back in early internet decided to live stream him taking a fudge ton of substances. There was a bot in chat that kept saying, Ripper is a gangster. He took more substances and more substances, all kinds of stuff. People were cheering him on, until it was clear he wasn't okay. People tried desperately to find a way to call 911, but didn't know where to send them. The whole time he was dying, the bot kept saying, Ripper is a gangster. He died on camera, foaming at the mouth. Story 14. In EMT class, we watched videos of the station nightclub fire. You can hear and see so much until everything is silent. The silence was the loudest and most unsettling part of that video. Story 15. A live feed of a couple entering their driveway through a security camera in that grayish CCTV black and white format. And I doubt they knew. Answer. You can do this on pretty much any webcam security camera that has an open port. I used some software a few years ago for a course I was doing. After learning more about it, I was able to literally look inside people's homes without them even knowing. I never used this for anything nefarious, but it's scary to think that people could. The Internet of Things can be a scary place. Story 16. Video of a nightclub fire. As the video starts, everyone's having a good time, just regular people out for some fun. The band starts playing in the sweaty, packed basement. Pyrotechnics go off, and before anyone can even comprehend what is happening, the whole stage is ablaze. People are slow to react. The band even tries to keep playing. Smoke fills the room. People start to realize something is not right and they panic, but there's only one narrow exit. Cut to outside the nightclub. The only exit is blocked by a wall of bodies, moaning and wailing like zombies, mortal terror on their faces. Everyone tried to pile out at once, but they got stuck in the doorway. The desperate, frantic pushing from those dying behind them only wedges them in more. You see the red-hot glow behind them as they're slowly cooked alive. The cameraman walks around the nightclub and finds another exit, but the door is jammed shut. You hear wailing and scratching on the door from the other side, which gradually stops. Years since I've seen it, but the images are burned into my brain. Story 17. Raw footage of that mosque shooting in New Zealand. I didn't know what I was clicking on and took me a moment to realize what I was seeing. Answer. I remembered watching the news break on this while I was in the UK. A long time passed since and I moved and now live in New Zealand. I started a job doing some landscaping around the place, and one job was in and around a cemetery. I turned to my colleague and said, "Hey, why are there armed guards by that building?" And wouldn't you know, it was the mosque where the killings happened. Quite visceral and surreal seeing something in the news and then being right there and the realization dawning on you. Such a small world, really. Story 18. Video of a passing pit in Syria where people were lined up, shot in the head and thrown in the pit, hundreds of bodies inside. Story 19. Everyone's brought up the rotten stuff and whatnot. But more recently for me, that stuck with me for a while. Not much affects me like that thanks to early internet days. Was the knife fight between the Ukrainian and Russian soldiers. Probably since it was almost like first-person camera on the one that loses, and everything that comes after, it gave me that hollow feeling the rest of the day. Answer: I disliked that video so much it's unbelievably sad. I wanted the Ukrainian to survive because I support their side in the war, but it's not a movie. It's real life. Just two regular people who have to eliminate each other. Apparently, someone translated what the Russian says at the end of the video, and it's something along the lines of, "You fought well, I'm sorry." I don't know if it's true, but it had 100-something replies, and no one seemed to call bullshit. Story 20. I'd say it's that 20-year-old kid burning in his hospital bed after his tent hospital got hit by a bomb. The slow movement, then stopping. The onlookers getting as close as they could, then retreating, knowing they couldn't do anything. That's one that sticks with me. I got on the net in 1995 or thereabouts and saw a lot of bad stuff, so I try to avoid seeing horrible things these days unless it seems worth doing. Story 21. There was a cartel video I remember stumbling on back when Narcomundo ran a website. It was Los Zetas or something. They didn't eliminate this guy. They just hung him upside down by his feet with a rope and took a bat to him and their fists. I remember they kept him there in some dimly lit shed, and he was so swollen and purple cyanotic that he looked like some Star Wars vaguely human-esque shape. He didn't look like a human anymore, and I doubt the poor soul survived. Story 22. CP on Tumblr. I reported that shoot to the Exploited and Missing Children Center immediately. I doubt anything came of it, but one can hope. Story 23. Live video of dude getting his head off. The dude used a machete, and it went into his neck. It took like 3 times, it didn't even fall off, hung with the felch. Story 24. Ugh. On TikTok recently, there was a Minions AI filter put over CSAM vid snuff films. Makes me dislike humans. Story 25. I can't even remember how I came across it, but I vaguely recall a website I stumbled across as a teenager that essentially gave you the ability to see live feeds of the insides of people's homes unbeknownst to them. Story 26. El Blog del Narco, a blog that shows everyday violence in Mexico related to the substances cartels. The killings and body manipulations I saw competed with the goriest movies I've ever seen. Only difference is there was no props involved, so everything you saw was real life. Was on that website so much, it pretty much desensitized me. During those times, I was interrogated by cartel members on a visit to a pueblo in Zihuatanejo in Guerrero, MX. And on one night, we stopped by a gas station around 1 a.m., and the next morning, found out a narco banner with a decapitated head was dropped off at that gas station around 15-20 minutes after we left the area. Scary times. Story 27. I was really disturbed with footage from SWAT, I think it was, raiding a hotel, and there was a dude that had nothing to do with the situation walking the corridor they were passing. They kept asking him to get on the ground, but on a certain way, dude was trying so hard to comply, but he was nervous and just kept crying and saying sorry. The officer's instructions were kind of confusing, and he kept screaming, with him saying that he was going to shoot if he didn't comply. He did what he asked, yet he eliminated him anyway, and continued on the way to raid the actual room they were there for. It was pretty fudge up, and I still think about it sometimes. Story 28. There was some ugly fudge. He just sat there staring at me, drinking, muttering to himself. Then I realized the monitor was unplugged. Story 29. A woman and a horse with a hard-on, with horse finishing inside her. I gagged, but I also couldn't look away. Answer. The only time I've seen something like that was pre-net being common in people's houses. when parents had to hide their videos in mags. My friend found his dad's VHS and had watched some of it prior to us being there. A couple of us were in his house one day when his parents weren't home, and he wanted to show us the video. When he first pressed play, there was a woman on her hand and knees with her free hand fully fisting herself. I wouldn't have believed it was possible if you told me, until that. After that scene was Animal Farm. A woman BJing a horse, she tried to take the whole horse's load in her mouth. The instant the horse came, her cheeks expanded, and there was too much of a mouthful for her to manage, so she had to spit it out. It had other scenes too, a goat licking a woman out and a woman trying to self-care a monkey. That's all I remember from that video. I never looked at his dad the same way again. If I ever saw him in my older days, I would have mentioned it to him, but I haven't seen him since I was 13. Story 30. Video from somewhere in Africa with a large pit dug in the middle of the village. 4 or 5, I assume, criminals in the pit being beat with heavy wooden clubs until their legs and ankles are broke, while the villagers and their kids collect sticks and shrubbery. The sticks and shrubbery all get put into the pit on top of the criminals. Then it gets set alight while they try crawl out the pit with no use of legs or limbs. Was probably 20 years ago I stumbled across this horrifying clip, and it shocked me early. Internet was wild. Story 31. It's long gone, rotten.com, was crime scene photos, takedown, car crashes, dismembered bodies. Oh, I miss the old internet LAOD. Answer: go on the internet, they said, the World Wide Web it is, and chat to strangers on IRC and MSN, and this newfangled thing called email. Connect to this database of the world's combined knowledge and wisdom. The world was my 56K oyster. Then teenage me discovered rotten.com, the Jolly Rogers cookbook, and, research articles, photos, actual videos of the only shortly beforehand top-shelf variety. Never before have human beings ever had so much ready access to so much. And yes, rotten was the worst. I mean, nightmare fuel bad. Story 32. Not exactly creepy, I guess, but I found it incredibly sad and foul that teenage girl back in the late or early tens felt the need to film herself sucking her used tampon and post it for clout. Story 33. When I was a lot younger, like 16, 17, trawling unfiltered Reddit or early 4chan, similar timeline to Steak and Cheese or Gore.com, accidentally finding CP or seeing that Russian soldier getting his neck cut, hacked with a knife. That shoot stays with you, man. Was not very cash money, especially unintentional CP, really leaves you with a sick feeling. It was then that I learned that people are shoot people. Story 34. Back in the day, I stumbled across a video of a woman, somewhere in Asia, I think, who was being followed by a pack of wild dogs. They eventually got bold enough to ignore her swats and yells and knocked her down. They took turns lunging at her. They started taking bites out of her. You could see her getting more and more tired, and she eventually passed out. Fortunately, the video ended before, well, you can picture it. Story 35. Those nutcam videos where guys would ring somebody's doorbell or get their attention in the street while they were self-care cum on them the second they responded. That shoot was insane. Story 36. Darn, I actually have a solid answer for this post. It was a vac bed video on LiveLeak. It was only up for maybe 10-15 minutes before it was deleted. I just remember a woman thrashing in a vac bed, obviously suffocating to passing, while a man sitting beside her gently whispered, "Just 60 more seconds, baby. Just hold on." Anyway, she stops thrashing, goes completely limp. He's still talking to her. He keeps her in there for maybe 2 more minutes. Pretty pretty sure it was some sort of snuff takedown tape, because LiveLeak removed it very quickly. Still haunts me when I think about it. Story 37. Parachute failing to opener during a base jump. Good survived, but that primal scream of agony will always remain with me. Story 38. My freshman year of college, I had an English professor who referenced a video to me of a man named R. Bud Dwyer. I said I hadn't seen it. All he said about it was, "Look it up." That prof wasn't a great guy, LOL. I looked it up and clicked the video he mentioned, really not knowing what to expect, since it had a generic title like R. Bud Dwyer Last Press Conference. In case you don't know who R. Bud Dwyer is, he was a politician who was convicted of bribery and responded by committing tragic end by shooting himself in the head on live TV during a press conference. It's a disturbing video. Don't watch it. Story 39. Brick going through a car and smacking into the driver's wife's face. You'll never stop hearing his scream. Every time I remember this video, I just feel sick. Story 40. There is a music album on YouTube that describes the individual stages of dementia. What it basically sounds like is a record player of songs of the 1920s that becomes increasingly broken until it's just nothing but static noise. It's called Everywhere at the End of Time by The Caretaker. Story 41. A long time ago, I stumbled on something that was probably the front page for a child-adult content site. It was a picture of a young boy in swim trunks about to go fishing in the river. The awful part was the music. If you can imagine the kind of music that would play in a backdrop in Tom Sawyer, or Huckleberry Finn, or some wholesome kids movie, it was like that, but made sexy and pornified. It was so disgusting, and it stays with me. Story 42. There was a website dedicated to a guy's chronicles of how he violated women and got away with it, with guides for people to follow and boastful stories. Raymond something? I can't remember the name of the website, but it was truly sick shoot. It was 100x worse than Reddit's Ask a Rapist thread. Story 43. Had a lot of creepy experiences on the net, but since you're specifically asking about surfing the web, back in the day before Google, you'd often just type random words with .com after to see if a website existed, because plenty of websites just weren't in the search engines of the time. Somebody had to manually add those to a directory, or a crawler had to find them linked on another site. Being a fan of Illuminati-type conspiracies, one day I tried worlddomination.com, and to my surprise, it worked. It's still there. Been there for decades. It just hosts a password-protected project. Slack, with no indication of how to get the password. The website's interface has been updated consistently over the years, so it is actively maintained. I still have no idea what the purpose of the website is. Not super creepy, just kind of mysterious, I guess. Story 44. Subreddit posts, which I know are AI generated, and we are living in a digital world where it is impossible to differentiate real people from bots. Story 45. LiveLeak had video of two Scandinavian girls camping in mountains of Morocco. Group men went in there, tent slowly stabbed one in the neck with rusty knife or screwdriver, while other had watched before her turn, all while live on one, the girl's social accounts on her own phone with her family watching. The sound alone was nightmare, but rusty knife taking forever to cut. Man, wish I didn't click that link. Story 46. Back during the days of LimeWire, when searching for an image or a song that you wanted, you didn't always get what the title of the file said it was, and there was no preview. Sometimes you would just highlight the first 20 files related to your CADH and start to download them. Yeah, I stopped doing that in the later days of LimeWire. I assumed that since the dark web hadn't taken off fully just yet, CP traders would use LimeWire to share their files and occasionally have words in the title matching something I was looking for. I was shocked to the core when going through the downloaded files and seeing more than one pic of something I never want to see again. For weeks after it, I was terrified that it would lead the law to my door. It was from that day I found Pirate Bay and used that 99 of the time instead. Story 47. A video of myself. A guy took a video of me in my high school history class and posted it on Tumblr. It was a guy I never talked to, but it was really weird when it landed on my page 2 years later. Story 48. When I was really young, I had seen the aftermath of a tragic end via dipping his head into sulfuric acid. There was no skin, only bright teeth and eyes. Anything degloved freaks me out. Story 49. Pick any of the IG's female good-looking influencers' posts. Then look at the comments. They are all creepy and cringy. Story 50. While it's not as awful as torture or horrific accidents, one of the creepiest things I've seen online is the current TikTok algorithm's shift towards adult content and gooning in general on that app. It takes very little effort to find adult content on that app, so little that it can be found accidentally. And once you've found it accidentally once, you get to see just how easy it is to access more. For example, you see a blue comment on a video, it's one word, soap. You click it, and the searches are women in bathing suits squatting on the camera. You think, wow, that's a little inappropriate for TikTok, and go about your day. Then you check your suggested searches, and you see things like Goon Corner, which is a trend where a seemingly innocent video will have a small pornographic image in one of the corners. From there, you see people in the comments advertising their reposts or stickers, all of which contain either uncensored or very, very poorly censored adult content. It only gets worse from there. Try it yourself and see how quickly your algorithm slips from a random word in a comment towards borderline brain-rotting levels of adult content consumption, or push a little further and see how it's designed to appeal to the kids on the app, using words like sus to describe adult content or intimacy activities. And would you believe me if I said it gets worse from there? There have been documented cases of accounts advertising CSAM. I genuinely believe there should be a lengthy video documentary on this. The fact I haven't seen it covered is insane to me because of just how easily accessed it is, and just how sinister it gets, as well as how quickly it gets that way. Some real disturbing stuff I think should be looked into by someone more qualified and with an audience to present the data to. Story 51. There was a site on Reddit where naked women would curl up in gutted carcasses like a deer eliminate. The women would be covered in blood. Strange site could still be up and running. The site catered to the fascination of blood and dead animals. Reddit was crazy back then. Story 52. 3 guys, 1 hammer. These 2 Russian teens attacked a man on his bicycle on a back road surrounded by woods. They substances him into the woods and slowly eliminate him with a ball-peen hammer and a screwdriver. The noises that man made still haunt me. Story 53. The infamous video of the guy dad hanging himself in front of his 2 small kids, them trying to get him down while his